This week is absolutely setting up to be a shocker, if you will. We have PCE, Fed minutes, and more coming along this week. And GDP, sorry, how could I forget that? So we have a lot to talk about in this video. And I told you going into yesterday and coming into today, what do we expect? Downside, downside, downside. Supply and demand is key. And let me tell you, it's the best strategy that is out there when it comes to looking at this market. So what we're going to do is look at the technicals and look at the fundamentals and where we're going for the rest of this week. Now, when I jump into this, I want to tell you right now, the Twitter link is down below. But what have we been saying, right? It's all been on Twitter. I try to keep you guys updated as much as possible. You had your supply and demand levels. I posted when this broke and was invalidated, right? Right there at around, I believe this was 9:45 a.m., about an hour into market open, you invalidated it. So what did we expect? A push to the next demand or a push down to the 200 SMA. What happened right after that? Did you even get a retest? No, you did not. So if we look here on the 4-hour chart, it was just straight down to your next demand, which you can see is down here. But honestly, my eyes are set on the 200 SMA, which has been a major focal point on the market. Before we go any further, I have to ask you to do two things: like and subscribe. I'm going to leave it at that. If you get anything out of the video, consider it, because every single day, Monday through Friday, I'm hitting you with what you need to know in the market, unbiased fundamentals and technicals, so you are prepared to win, right? Win, lose, draw. I'm going to let you know what's happening. Also, I have to let you guys know, I don't like to do a lot of shout outs for Discord or anything like that, but there's only 10 spots left on the normal tier for full access. I believe there's a full spots that will be opening up on the lower tier coming out in the beginning of the month, but we'll have to see. As of right now, there's only 10 spots left, unless you want to do like the 3 months and year or whatever that is. But even the year, the mentorship program almost sold out as well. So when we jump into this, when we look at these charts, let's start talking about where we're going. And we had that newsletter get released as well. The newsletter link is down below, so check it out. It's absolutely free. Now, when we get started here, again, we're coming to the end of the day. We have about 7 minutes left in the day. I have to pump this video out before the end of the day, but you don't look great. We started the day out with Walmart and Home Depot earnings, and needless to say, those earnings weren't fantastic. If we go into WMT, you can see Walmart, it was more of the outlook. I always tell you guys this: when you're looking at earnings, look at the outlook and that statement, okay? Now, you're looking at Walmart, you're like, well, Tyler, you dropped and then you pumped back up. If you look at the forward-looking statements, they're not anticipating growth. They're not anticipating profits to keep coming in, right? They keep revising down. This is a going trend we've been seeing. So what happened with its competitors when their earnings will be released relatively soon? Target, boom, shot down. Costco, boom, shot down. You got a little bit of love. You bounced into the 200 SMA, but you're rejecting off that 90 MA on the 4 hour or 1 hour, right? So you're seeing this kind of trickle into the market. And what's something that we always say about XLP and XLY? XLP specifically, right? Consumer staples, XLP, consumer discretionary, XLY, which is like Target and a few other names. But when you go to Walmart and Costco, it's XLP. And when we look at those names, and Home Depot had really bad earnings also this morning. They started dropping. When we look at what happened there, the important thing to grasp is when we're looking at this is XLP tends to lead, if you will. When we start moving back to the upside on SPY and on Nasdaq in previous rallies and runs, go back to June, go back to March, right? Look at what happens. XLP, Costco, Target, Walmart, they've all really been big leaders in the initial phase of that. Now, when we look at this, could this be the beginning of a turnaround, right? So last week, what did we say? If you break below 1240, you got to be bearish, okay? That's where you start turning the pool, right? And then if you make a lower low below like 11.9, 11.8, then you're just full bear. The trend has completely flipped. When we get below 12.4, it's the signal that maybe a top has been locally put in, and then now we're seeing more danger. So what do we see here, and where are we going now? So what I want to do really quick is very quickly go over Nasdaq and then ES. So Nasdaq, I'm going to tell you right now, target number one has got to be the 200 SMA. On the daily. This is the daily time frame. So when we come back and we identify and we view this, I want to show you the weekly really quick so you can see. We're actually going to go over here just so I can show you easily on TradingView. And when you look here, we're going to really quickly get rid of everything but the 200 daily SMA. Go to the 1 week chart. When's the last time you were above the 200 daily moving average? All the way back of January 18th, 2022. That was the last time you were above it. You rejected once, twice, three, almost four, and then 5, you broke above, you're sitting above it now. So I believe right now the 200 SMA on the daily time frame has got to be our focus, not anything the simple moving average or the moving average, right? That's the only thing you need to put in, not EMA, nothing like that. Okay, that's where you're at right there, right? You're still sitting above it. That's my next target if we really start breaking below this demand. Now, going into the weekly, right? I want to show you also the weekly 200 MA. This is another big level. This will be my next target if we break below that one. It's going to be the weekly 200 moving average, right back down at 11.6. So I don't want to get started on this level. I want to, right? We don't start. You just want to focus on what's next. That's what I always try to tell you guys on these short-term viewpoints. Okay, so we have short-term and long-term. Well, short-term, we want to focus on what's happening now. So really, the 200-day moving average, right? And then if that starts to break, we want to target the weekly. So that's where we're at there. And I just want to give you a visual, something to be looking for. Now, ES, this is where things heat up also. And ES, let me tell you, SPY specifically, so you understand, right? I want to clarify if you don't know, SPY's looking bad. I'm going to tell you now. And on SPY, the same thing. You've been above the 200-day a few times. You rejected also, but you tried to mount it a few times already and failed. Now you're above it. You will have your retest very soon, around 39.45, 39.50. That's going to be a very big test. And I assume that will get tested very soon. Now, when we look at that, I'm going to tell you right now, that is not going to be an easy test. It's going to be tough, and that's going to give a lot of answers. But I do side with that most likely breaking in the near term also. Okay, so that's my target short term for the downside. Both of the 200 simple moving averages, ES and Nasdaq. And people saying, well, Tyler, what does that mean for SPY? Well, where's SPY going? Now, SPY, I think it's not going to be exactly on that 200-day on SPY, but it's going to be around the area of 394, 392 roughly in that block or that range. ES always outweighs SPY. SPY and ES are essentially the same thing, but futures go, all day and all night. So again, this is not going to be a futures lesson. Okay. I just got to give you the sauce, and you can put it on whatever you want to put it on. Right. I can give you the spaghetti, but if you don't eat the spaghetti, then are we really family? And this brings me to my next subject, the VIX. Now, as we look at the VIX, what have we always said? This $24 region has been huge. And giving you a visual on the weekly time frame, this is that little range, the weekly around 24 down to around 23. And if I give you a better visual, I'm going to go to the daily so you can zoom in here just a little bit more to see where we're at. You can see we've come up to this range, rejected, right? But look at when we've mounted. You pushed up, you mount, boom, you shoot off to 30. Boom, you shoot off to 35. So when you really mount this 24 region, you tend to get some volatility to the upside on VIX. What have we said about VIX? People keep saying, if I had $1 for every comment I had about saying VIX is pumping over the past 2 months, I'm just like, no, it's not. You're delusional, because it's not. There has been no real pump here on VIX. You had a decent push in the beginning of December, but there's really been no volatility until now, right? Can we all agree that this volatility from the past 3-4 days has been the best volatility that you've had on VIX? We can all agree on that. If you don't, then you just don't want to factor in what's actually in front of your face. If you just don't want to connect that. Next up, the dollar. So of all the things we're going to talk about here, I would say the dollar doesn't have the least impact. Understand that I don't want to say it has the least impact, but I want to let you know that, in my opinion, it's a little bit skewed right now. And let me clarify a little bit easier for you. When you look at what's happening here, the dollar's been dropping drastically, yet the market didn't skyrocket. There's been a disconnection between the dollar and a risk on, risk off mentality. So when the dollar goes up, is it a decent signal? Is it something that you want to look at? Yes, it is. However, there's been a big disconnection between the strength of the dollar based on devaluing from other countries. That being said, let's talk about where the dollar's at. As you can see, we zoom out. This is your 2016 high. This held for the next 6 years. Your next level is your March 2020. Okay, understand this, right? Understand. So where are we mounting when we come here to the 4 hour to get a better viewpoint? We mount that bottom level, we reject that top level with your 2016 high, which held for 6 years, and then we mount that level. So the dollar does look good, but I'm not going to go and say that the dollar is going to lead you to crash. What is ultimately what we're looking for downside in the market? Okay. Rising inflation, a resurgence in inflation data. One, we're getting it. Okay. We want the Fed to change their tone. We're getting it. We started seeing that last week. Okay, that's what we're looking for. Commodity prices to rise. Almost every hedge fund sees commodities being the number one trade over the next year. So those are the 3 areas, and they're all priming as we speak, right? With what's happening in China and what's happening globally. On top of that, what's happening also? We have Russia talking about nukes and they're getting out of the nuclear deal. We have North Korea, Kim Jong-un, that guy knows about yay high. He's just firing off nukes into the middle of the ocean by Japan. We have China arming Russia. I mean, it's all just craziness. What is this? Is the next factor. There is no certainty in the market right now. If ever, there's never been uncertainty. Right now is the time. Even more so than with the Russia stuff. If you really think about what's happening. That's why I continue to say, as we look at the market, I have fundamentally not been this bearish potentially ever. If we look at what's happening globally, it's terrible, terrible news, right? I'm not to scare you. I'm just giving you the truth. And people are going to be like, Tyler, look, I liked you a lot better when you were bullish. I liked you a lot more. You were a way cooler guy. Stocks were going to the moon. We were making bread. This is great. But that's the thing. You can still make money in this market. That's why I'm talking about these big plays. The next part of the video. Let's get into this. Now, first, before we do that, I also want to give you a little bit more information about ES and how we've been moving. Let's go to Bookmap, okay? Now, this is something, and again, it follows in from Friday. What did we see here? We saw, if we look, this is a visual of level 2 data, first of all. So if you see orders on the top, that basically means there's a sell wall, if you will. So sellers are making a level where buyers have to break through. If there's right there, that means there's a buy wall. So if we see today, we don't see very many sell walls. We see some sell walls established a little bit here through midday, lunchtime, but really there wasn't much going on here. So what are we looking at here? So beginning of the day, when we saw all the volatility and sellers stepping in, we saw aggression. That's what I see here personally. No sell side, no real wall setting up. They're just slapping the ass, slapping the bid on SPX, pushing us down in ES. It's down, down, down. Buyers try to hold you, push through. Buyers try to hold you again and again and again. You just dump, 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 dump. You sit down here for a little bit. We push back down, make new lows. And then we see near the end of the day, we see sellers start to establish their position to try to not let buyers push you back up once you get that 4,000 test down here, which was gazpacho, mucho caliente, buenos nachos, absolutely glorious. We love to see it, right? So that's where we're in the day. This is, again, what we've been looking for. And people kept saying, well, Tyler, we're bearish, weeks ago, right? And we weren't. It was clear as day. When you look at this, you can now come to the conclusion that sellers are showing strength, right? How do we know? Because they're pushing you straight through every wall that you have, giving you a better visual. Let's look at volume, right? Haven't even checked volume since around noon today, but I can tell you it's halfway decent. If we look at volume going into after hours, I can almost guarantee you'll be around 80 million. So around 5-6 million more. Again, sell side volume has been rising. What did we see on the 16th? You rose. You're probably in around 80 million. I didn't get a huge spike, but it's staying above the 30-day average, right? What did we see previously when we were pushing up, right? Every time sellers would step in, it'd be the least amount of volume that you've seen, okay? Now we're seeing some continuation. Maybe it's not 100 million, but it's at least above the 30-day average, okay? And that's what we want to see, continuation and continued strength, at least from the volume perspective, okay? So I hope this makes sense. Now let's get into some stocks that we're liking. I'm not going to waste your time anymore. This is why you came here. You came here because you're like, look, Jefe, it's been a tough day for me. Right? I was still looking bullish. I was still trying to trade the upside, even though they were talking about nukes, and I thought nukes would be bullish for the economy. But let me tell you, there's hope, right? What is our favorite play so far? My favorite play to the downside has and will be AMD. If you're subscribed on Twitter, then you already know this. I was calling this out since last week. People even try to tell me today, they were like, Tyler, you need to change your perspective about AMD. Now, it's worth mentioning, NVIDIA does report earnings tomorrow. That will be huge. That will be big. That'll be very important. From my perspective, NVIDIA keeps dropping their expectations on earnings. I don't think they're going to smash. I don't think they're going to do anything crazy. Again, my personal opinion. However, be aware that's a little bit risky. So my position is still in the green. I'm still holding. I got around about 78.5. You're sitting at around 76.7. You got to lows of 76.5, $2 doing well. It's worth mentioning you still have a daily gap down to 75.2. You did fill the gap day head right here around to 76.7. But again, I am targeting down to 75.2. 75.5 roughly on the conservative side. Again, still of AMD, so it looks great. I love the downside opportunity. Now, I also want to show you a little bit of NVIDIA. Now, NVIDIA, I'm not going to lie, this thing looks god-awful. Okay, so if we look at NVIDIA, there's been a few things that we've been watching. Let's go to the 4-hour chart. If we look at NVIDIA, you had a clear-cut demand, if you will. basically from around 211 down to lows of around 207. Okay, 207.7. Right? You bounce, you bounce, you bounce, you bounce. You just been bouncing. Well, today that level got invalidated and Nvidia started showing weakness. You also have a potential double top forming here. I mean, honestly, I gotta clean my hands because at this point we might be murdering it at this point because this thing is gonna go down as a double homicide. This thing looks treacherous if we start to get that continuation to the downside. So I'm just telling you, keep your hands clean. Don't go near the crime scene unless you're really hammering those puts. But again, you need to wait for those earnings. You need to be a little bit cautious. But again, the potential set here technically, like I said, fundamentals and technicals were disconnected last week. Okay, but this week we're starting to see the technicals line up with the fundamentals. And when that happens, that's the money-making opportunity. So again, my opinion looks good. If you're targeting anything, it'd be all the way down at like even conservative, 194 to 189. Okay, that's conservative. I personally think 190 to 189. Like personally, I would target even lower. Again, that's me. Now, my favorite play right now, shout out J Ream, my partner in crime. There's usually something up his sleeve, if you know what I mean, right? There's always something he's pulling, got a little something up there. And usually it's the ace of spades. And let me tell you, Tesla, I want to show you a visual real quick. So Tesla, you're breaking your higher low trend here, and you're seeing a lot of retail hammering calls, okay? Scary, terrifying, not a huge fan of it. Now, showing you a visual of some of the dangers on the Tesla side, just giving you a visual, okay? So this is the daily chart. This is the daily 200 SMA. It's right here at 223. So you have a lot of top side resistance, and then 232 is a massive level also. Now, Tesla's breaking your higher lows here. I've been in since around 201 on Friday. Okay, so you're breaking down now. But I want to give you a visual of the downside opportunity here. In Tesla, we know it moves more volatile. We know it's a lot of danger here. But look at something like Apple, right? Remember we were looking at Apple, but then it turned into a double top and you got just slaughtered. Apple was making these higher lows also, right? Going into Friday, you were still holding. It was looking good, looking solid. Go to like the 2 hour, give you a better visual. As you look here, you can see, right, just really quick, trying to show you where you're at. You can see you're trying to hold these levels, trying to hold up, right? Just roughly drawing it, right? You break down and then boom, kaboom, like $5 of downside, okay? Pretty tough. And then you start to see Microsoft, and then we start to see a little bit of a going trend here. Look what happens. You're holding these higher lows, kaboom, go from 265 all the way down to 252. Remember, we talked about this. We were bearish on Microsoft last week. We had these gap fills, and let me tell you, Microsoft said, I can go up quick, but I can go down faster, and it proved it. Microsoft also has a great put position. It's underneath the 200 SMA. I absolutely love it. But going back to Tesla, if Tesla can break below this level, if it can start making lower lows, you're in danger on Tesla. I have 170 puts for April. Shout out J Ream. All credit to Jay. All hell Jay. But I'm telling you, continuation is what we're looking for here. We want to see a push down and a lower low established. We start to break trend. I'm telling you really quick, 189, probably coming into that 181 level, maybe even lower as well. I love what I'm seeing here. If you want to check out more live trades, I recommend hopping in every single day here on the channel, 10:30 a.m. Central Time. So on 2 hours in the market open, we go live here and cover live trades and go over trades that we're looking at for the day. So make sure you check that out. Last up, I already mentioned it, Microsoft. This thing is gorgeous, right? Microsoft is like just, occasionally things do this to me. You know what I mean? Like occasionally you get these setups, you get these channels that are just gorgeous. And Microsoft right now is getting hammered. Just boom, shot. Not a perfect channel. I just want to highlight what you're doing though. But now you're below the 200 SMA. What happened when you mounted the 200 SMA? You pushed up, retested, and then you went from 254 all the way to highs of 276-ish, right? You got downside to 245 minimum, 245, 246. You start breaking below that, then we're at 242. And then if you break below 242, I mean, like I said, clean up on aisle 3. So that's what I'm looking at today. That's what I'm looking at tomorrow. And these are the big plays. The last thing I'm going to leave you with is some of the flow that came in on the day, the biggest orders of the day, just so you can see. And let me tell you, SPX, have I seen a more bearish day? It's hard to say. You saw an $87 million put come in on SPX for March 17th. You saw more come in here as well. All the biggest orders of the day to the downside. The calls are not even in comparison to the size of the puts. And again, it just leaves me to side with the downside for myself personally. Now, you do have the investor meeting on Tesla, so I would keep that in the back of your mind. But again, like I said, a lot of people are still trying to hammer these calls here. And I'm not going to say these are retail, but I'm going to say people are still really aggressive on Tesla. it's been a while since some people got their teeth kicked in. And I think it may be time again. So in my opinion, I'd be on the safe side here. Looking at NVIDIA as well. Again, nothing great coming in there either. Looking at Qs, look what's happening here. Last week, Qs were a highlight of the market. They were the best part. It was all calls. It was the only green part. This week, it's a different story on tech. It's not looking nearly as good. The S&P, not looking as good. This is what big money's doing. Look, my hands are in the air. Don't shoot, baby. Don't shoot. I'll see you tomorrow. Like, subscribe, do what you gotta do. Hey, unsubscribe if you need to, because really, I honestly, I just don't even care.